Hello, my name is Stephen Fairley. I'm CEO of the Rainmaker Institute. We're the nation's largest legal marketing company that specializes in lead generation, lead conversion, and client retention for small to mid-sized law firms. Since 1999, we've been privileged and honored to work with over 15,000 attorneys nationwide. And in addition to that, we partnered with over 35 of the largest state and local bar associations, including the State Bar of California. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about opening up a law firm. And I'd like to talk to you specifically for those of you who are thinking, okay, I left law school and I'm not really sure that big law is for me, or I tried big law and I'm ready to kind of move on to something else. And for those of you who are thinking of opening up your own law firm, I want to give you some pros and some cons, as well as some practical tips and advice for how you can actually do that. As I mentioned, we've worked with over 15,000 attorneys over the last 15, 16 years, and it's been amazing. I've seen some incredible changes and some challenges and some transformations in law firms as they built and they've grown. Based on my experience, there are three major phases or stages that law firms go through as they mature and develop. Now, for most of you, if you're just starting out on your own law firm, you're going to start at the first stage. That stage is a job. Essentially, you have a job, right? Which means that you are it. You are everything. You do everything. You're the chief cook and bottle washer, right? You are the person who not only has to go out and look for the business, you have to sign up the business, you have to do the work, then you have to build a client, then you have to collect. And at that stage, typically you don't have any employees. Typically you have very little to no systems in your law firm, and it's all about the hustle. It's all about getting that next client. It's all about landing that next deal. It's all about actually getting the work done. I mean, you are oftentimes busting your tail. It is very difficult for most law firms during that initial phase. Why? Because it's all about them. And you're working 60, 80, 100 hours a week. That is not atypical. Now, some of you, perhaps you have your starting off family, or maybe you already have a family, or maybe you're thinking about something. Maybe you have a significant other that works, but maybe you're on your own. And so it's very difficult for you because you're trying to always get that next client. Typically, law firms that are in that job phase or that first phase are making anywhere from 0 to maybe as much as $500,000 in revenue, usually not that much. The second phase that law firms go through as they mature and evolve is a practice. And this is where most law firms are generating somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. And again, these numbers are not magic. Sometimes it might be a little bit more, sometimes it might be a little bit less. Typically, that's when you first start hiring your first or second, perhaps your third employee. They might be an assistant, they might be a paralegal, they could even be an associate eventually. Usually, you're the best technician in the firm. Not always, but usually you're the best technician in the firm, which means you get all the hard cases, you get all the hard clients, but you're still responsible for marketing the business. You're still responsible for signing up most of the cases. And in some cases, you're usually responsible for the more difficult cases. And then what the attorneys like to do is to kind of push down a little bit, in terms of what they actually do for work. They're kind of cherry picking the cases, but they're still doing a lot of the work. At that stage, it's all about the cash flow. It's all about trying to have enough money not only to support yourself, not only to provide for your family and your loved ones, but also to pay your employees. I understand that that's stressful for some of you. At this point in time when we're doing this video, I have 60 people on payroll that depend on me every 2 weeks. That's a lot of stress. Now, most law firms don't ever get that big. Some of them do. But understand that there's a third stage. A third phase as law firms mature and evolve, and that's the business practice. So in other words, they've gone from a job to a practice and a practice to a business. A business typically is running 7 figures. And for many of you, that's a very high goal. You walk into some of these large law firms and they're doing tens of millions or perhaps even hundreds of millions of dollars, and you think, oh, that's really easy to do. No, it's not. You talk to people who go out on their own and they're like, I was being billed at $300 an hour and they were paying me $50 an hour. So if I go out on my own, I can charge $200 an hour and make 4 times more than what I was making in the first place. No, it doesn't work like that, because not only do you have clients that are basically laid in your lap, right, at these big law firms, but now you got to go out and you got to find the client. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of time. Then you actually have to get the client to sign up and pay you on time so that you can pay your bills. There's no guarantees in a small business. It is a risk. And I know many attorneys are very risk adverse. So for some of you, that might not be a good choice, but for some of you, it's an exceptional choice. That you have to understand that you're not going to start out from day one and immediately jump to a practice or immediately jump to a business where you're running 7 figures. It's a time and an effort type of situation. To go from a job to a practice to a business, oftentimes you have to upscale. And this is something to keep in mind as you go through. You have to upscale your staff, because sometimes the people who get you to this level aren't the same people that can get you to the next level. You have to upgrade your software. You have to invest in the infrastructure of your law firm. You have to also invest and upgrade in your systems. Systems are something that are written down, they're protocols, they're policies, they're procedures, and we'll talk a little bit perhaps later on about some of those systems. But there are many different systems out there that you need to have in order to run a law firm. Well, for example, you need to have a marketing system. You need to have a client onboarding system. So what do you do when a new client comes on board, and how do you sign them up? I mean, very, very practical things. A system can be something that's a checklist. It can be written down. It can be a flow chart, a spreadsheet, whatever it is, but it has to be written down. And then oftentimes, you have to upgrade your sales. You have to learn how to sell better. Now, I know you didn't go to law school to become a salesperson. I know you didn't go to law school to become a business owner. They didn't teach you about the business of law. They taught you about the substantive matters and practices of law. But if you actually want to start and launch your own law firm, you need to learn how to sell. And sales is not a dirty 4-letter word. It's simply the gentle art of persuading someone to do business with you versus doing it on their own or somewhere else. So when you think about whether I want to open up a law firm, think about what kind of risk you're willing to take on. In most cases, for a professional service firm, it's going to take you somewhere between 18 to 24 months before you start making any kind of serious money. Now, every once in a while, you're able to leave your old law firm and walk out with a few cases. But I've seen this over and over again, that typically that ride lasts about 6 months. I was talking with someone just the other day, an attorney. She said, yeah, I left my law firm, and I was able to walk out with 2 or 3 cases, and I'm getting some leads from my friends and family. And I said, be careful, because in about 6 months, all of that is going to go away. You're going to finish up with those clients, and then your friends and family are going to send you every single lead that they can possibly get for about 6 months. Then you're going to have to rely on your sales and marketing prowess, your business development. So, what do you want? And that's the question that I'll leave you with. What do you want? Do you want a job? Do you want a practice? Or do you want a business? Because how you build one, go from one to the next, is different. If you intend on having a job, there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment. The problem with a job is you can never leave. You can never go on vacation. Because if you don't work, you don't eat. How do I know if I have a practice or a business? Here's one way. If you were to take off on vacation for a month, when you came back, would you A, have any clients left? B, would those clients be happy because they were being serviced in your absence? And C, would you have more money in the bank than before when you left on your vacation? If you can't answer yes to all 3 of those questions, you either have a job or a practice, you don't have a business. What do you want? There's no right or wrong answer, because this is your life and this is your law firm. But consider that you have to use different strategies to build a job, and you have to upgrade your sales, your software, your systems, and perhaps even yourself to go from a job to a practice and a practice to a business.